Alright guys, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're going to get started today by just jumping into the footage instead of doing some video where I sit around and talk for a few minutes. I'm going to try and get everything done over the voiceover. So we're going to start by unplugging all the fuel injectors. And then we're going to remove the fuel rails. We're trying to get the intake manifold off so that we can replace the coolant lines that broke earlier, among other things that we're going to do today. So this was kind of hard for me to film without removing the manifold first, so I figured I'd remove it and show you how everything goes. This is the map sensor. The electrical connector gets removed and you can take it out with the manifold, and then it just turns and comes out after, and then you're going to have this vacuum line that runs off and onto the brake booster in the car. It's easier to take it off of the brake booster than the manifold itself, I found. Here's one for you. Boy, was I ever glad I decided to change the passenger side coolant pipe as well. Look at the corrosion on this thing. It completely took the end off. It wasn't leaking or anything, but I'm sure it would have been if I had left it any longer. Nice thing to find this. Better safe than sorry sometimes. So now that it's all apart, this seems like the ideal time to start putting in the new fuel injectors too. The injectors that I decided to go with, I got secondhand, but they were new, never installed. They are Simmons 80-pound or 840cc a minute injectors. And I'll give you the part number for them as well. They might be a little large for this application, but I think that they will work pretty good, and obviously they're going to flow more than enough. If anything, they're going to flow too much, but for the price I paid, I couldn't be happier. Now, the one thing that's very important to note about these particular injectors is that they are longer O-ring to O-ring than the old injectors, and what this causes is the rail to sit higher up when they're installed into the intake manifold again, and that creates a space between where the rail is supposed to bolt to the manifold and where it actually will now. A lot of times these kits include spacers, but unfortunately because I got mine secondhand I didn't get them. So the easy solution here was just to measure O-ring to O-ring and figure out what that difference was and find a spacer that would work. Now I was able to determine that I needed a 10mm spacer, well 4 of them for all 4 bolts that go through the rail to the manifold. I wasn't able to find an actual spacer in 10mm, but I did find nuts that are exactly that diameter, and it's going to work just the same, so I went ahead and did that. I also decided to tap and install the bolt into the manifold like that. By tapping it out first, it just adds a little bit more security to the manifold than just drilling it out, but I still put a nut and lock washer on the backside to be safe.
Crazy mother.
Alright, so on to the map sensor. So this is the new map sensor that I got from Mopar. It was only 40 bucks Canadian, so that wasn't so bad. I did have to make a couple modifications to it though to get it to fit. This is from an SRT4 caliber, so it's a little bit different. There is a tab on the side, which as you can see does not fit into the manifold. So we had to cut the tab off the side of it, as well as trim a little bit of one of the tabs on the connector itself. But once that was all done, fit right into the manifold, no problem at all, and the connector plugged right in. Next up, we had to start working on the install of the radiator and the new intercooler that we got. I'm removing the lower mount so that I can install the brackets and spacers provided by TorqStorm in order to relocate the radiator forward. This has to happen to clear the belt drive on the front of the engine, and also it has to lower the cradle or the lower rad mount so that the piping for the intercooler can go underneath the upper rad mount. Now in this particular clip when I'm installing these mounts, unfortunately I did make the mistake of installing them backwards. All they have to do is turn so that the hole is facing on the bottom instead of the top. That was my mistake on the installation, and this actually moves them closer to the rad instead of away, but I did fix it since then. I just didn't happen to get it on video. Alright, now here we go installing the rad again into the revised support. Now you have to use the spacers that come with the ProCharger air-to-air intercooler, which is the system that I ended up getting secondhand. The reason is the TorqStorm spacers between the lower rad support and the frame of the car aren't thick enough so that the air boxes or the charge tubes from the intercooler to the supercharger and to the intake, they're not thick enough to lower it enough so that those pipes can fit. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to have to do some figuring out here, because in the ProCharger setup, the rad doesn't get moved forward. It stays where it is because it uses a thinner front belt drive, so it doesn't have to move like the TorqStorm setup does. The thing is, this means that the intercooler, with the mounts the way that they're supposed to be, sits too close to the rad. Now I was able to switch the mounts around and get the intercooler to fit and bolt up and everything, but now it's going to be sticking too far out the front and might interfere with the bumper. I'm sure that's something I'm going to be able to figure out, but it is something I'm going to have to deal with that we're going to document in the upcoming videos. Not exactly a direct bolt-on, but that's okay. I wasn't expecting it to be. Side note, forgot to video it, but the bracket for the power steering line that goes into the pump came from TorqStorm, and so that's installed now as well. Here's a photo of it. So there we go, the intercooler's mounted, and like I said, there's a couple of things I'm going to have to work through and figure out here. It's just all part of the build though. not a big deal. We're definitely getting there. I got some more stuff to try and clean up as well and just kind of perfect. I mean, nothing about this build is perfect, but you know, I want it to be as good as I can make it for what I'm willing to invest into it. We still have to do the fuel pump, but I've had some people asking me about it, and the pump that I'm installing is an AEM 51000 in-tank upgrade pump. So, you know, hopefully that's going to work pretty good. I don't know, as I haven't used it yet, but we're going to obviously document the install of that as well in an upcoming video. The last thing to note is I did finally get my tune. I ordered a baseline tune from Jay Green at Green Racing. And so yeah, so we're gonna get that loaded into the car, and hopefully not too long from now we're gonna be able to do our first startup. So stay tuned, everybody. Thanks for the support, and we'll talk to you soon. Ciao.